morning, bonjour à tout le monde. It's great to be here and gather all together. Kathy asked that I introduce myself, so my name is Tammy Johnson. I'm a nurse in Moncton. I specialize in multiple sclerosis and not addiction. I am not an expert in that field at all. However, with that, I do have personal experience. So I'm not here representing Horizon Health. I'm here in a volunteer capacity, just so you're all aware of that. I became involved with Portage, sadly, but also very fortunately, 5 years ago. I'm married to a beautiful man, Dan, and we've raised together 2 beautiful boys. And sadly, our youngest became different. Christmas of 2017 was just a weird Christmas, and call it a mom's intuition, but there was just something that wasn't right that Christmas. And I chalked it all up to, it's just a teenager, it's just a boy going through his stuff. And in January, it became evident there was something more to it than that. February, I can't even remember exactly, but that's when I knew that something was terribly wrong. And only about a week and a half later, I got a call from the principal at school saying that he was suspended because he had punched a boy in the face. And I say that laughingly, jokingly, it's not funny, but it's totally out of character for my boy to do that. And so that day affirmed to me that he was using drugs. I knew it. Other people tried to convince me that that wasn't the case and sweep it sort of under the rug, or she's just going through an awkward time, including our own family doctor. So I guess my point to this is the months that ensued after that day and the days that ensued that, the feelings of fear. And fear is an understatement when you're a mom and that's your child, or you're a woman and you have a child, or any person is an understatement. I was terrified. Never in my life had I felt so lonely, ashamed, and isolated. We didn't talk to anybody. We just sort of locked ourselves in our home and just tried to figure things out on our own. So I am quite resourceful, and if you speak to my colleagues at work, you'll know that I can be a dog with a bone on a personal level when I sink my hooks into something that I believe is important and to advocate. I do that all the way. And I'm happily doing that in my role as an MS clinic resource nurse, and I certainly did that with my beautiful boy. We took him for a tour to Portage after many phone calls and conversations in hopes that he would agree to go and enroll in that program. And he wasn't ready that day. And there was nothing that we could do about it because he was of age. And so we went home and did what we could in the School of Hard Knocks. And last night I heard the term from a very interesting young woman that I met from Ontario, that she weaves a spider web in her program. And I thought, oh my God, I love that acronym. And I think in all of the talks that are going to ensue over the next 2 days, I think that spider web theme can summarize it all. So I started backwards in my journey with Portage because my son was having nothing to do with it. So I went backwards and started in their aftercare program as a parent support group. And it was that parent support group that gave me the education, the love, the feeling of belonging, broke down some of that shame and some of those barriers for me to help me love and parent my son the way that he needed me to do, so that he would access care finally. And so for that, I am forever grateful. In with all those emotions was an overwhelming sense of hopelessness. And so as we move forward through the next couple of days, I think that hopelessness word is going to resonate with me. A brilliant young woman by the name of Amber Parlee told me, Tammy, as I cried and was hysterical some nights, not knowing where my son was at the time. It's a positive from a negative, Tam. You have to look at the positive from the negative. There's always a positive in the negative. But I didn't see that for a very, very long time because of the overwhelming sense of hopelessness. And I think that some people in many of our communities are feeling that as we look at homelessness and drug use and the crisis that is coming to be our reality now. And so I was able to learn from this young, brilliant Amber, and hope has become my new word. And it became my new word as I wondered where my son was one night when he had run away during his addiction. And I changed the locks on the door and entered a new security code for the garage door, and the code was hope. Because I thought if I lose hope, it's over. I've lost my boy. And so as we move forward this week, these next couple of days rather, when you Google the word hope, it sounds like a very lame sort of term, hope. Well, we all hope. Sure, we can hope. And it sounds a bit empty. But I think it's just the opposite. And so as we listen to all of these brilliant presenters over the next 2 days, I'd like for you to think of the word hope as we move forward and we go home. And with the word hope comes an expectation. And I think when I leave here today and tomorrow and Saturday, I'm going to expect more of myself and more of our community. I think we need to do that because this isn't an individual problem. And we need to put that expectation on our peers and our coworkers in everywhere that we are and what we do and where we work. We have to put that onus on a community. With hope comes a belief. I believe that we can work on this, that we can win this, that we won't lose this battle. And it may be a never-ending one, but we need to have that belief. And the other word that comes up when you Google it is awaiting and anticipating. And so I think with some of the things that we're going to learn from each other here in the next 2 days, that we can await for change to happen. It will come, but it's not going to be easy, as Dr. Poole alluded to. So as we weave the spider web over the next couple of days together, and we increase our expectations of each other and our communities, I really hope that we will win at the end of the day. And I really think that we can do that together. So thank you for all being here. I think as well, when we look at the speakers that are here, it is very evident when we talked about silos and working in silos, that it really is holistic care that is going to help us win this in the end, because we can't do it individually or within our own private groups of employment. So I'm very grateful to have been through what we've been through, my husband and I and my son, who is actually doing very well, I'm proud to say today, going to school and thriving and living a wonderful, happy life. And as are we. But I am changed, and as is he. And I think that everybody who knows and loves our family is as well, because I have made it my focus to be open and transparent and honest and real. I was so arrogant at the beginning of our journey, and ignorant and arrogant, I think, would be the two words, because I thought that we had done everything by the book, the right way, that would not ever happen to our boy or our family. I learned in family group as I looked around that addiction does not discriminate. And so I think that message we need to also relay to the people in our communities, to our friends, and start those conversations, and that very basic education needs to continue if we're going to truly win this battle. So without further ado, let us move on to the Indigenous panel. I am very excited to hear what our next speaker, Miss Ella Karen Blind, is going to discuss. She is an elder Indigenous woman that is from Sweden, so she's going to be joining us via Zoom. She wasn't able to come in person, obviously, from Sweden. She is a member with a non-government agency looking after the Sami people. It just astounds me that she represents so many people from Finland, Norway, Sweden, and Russia, and that she talks about the rights and interests of these 4 countries and the Sami people where they live. And so I think we're all going to learn a lot of excellent things from her in this presentation. She's a cultural advocate, I think, in every sense of the word. Christine Petawabanow is also going to be joining us via Zoom. Sadly, she was at the airport and her flight was canceled, thanks to Miss Fiona. So Christine is going to be joining us via Zoom. Christine is a community leader, I think is what I would call her when I look at her bio, or when you look at her bio. She is celebrating 13 years of her own sobriety and conducts annual Wellbriety retreats in her community where they celebrate each other living a life in wellness without drugs and alcohol. She loves celebrating the land. She's a 4th-year sun dancer and spends as much time outside in her exercising and participating in traditional wellness lifestyles, but also attributes that to helping her stay healthy and well in her journey. She also has been a volunteer for years with the Mistini Hope Committee, which celebrates and recognizes sobriety in their community. Imelda Purley, you will note, is also on your agenda and in your schedule due to a family emergency. She has had to withdraw from today's presentation. We are sorry that Elder Purley, will not be able to join, as is Lisa Copperqualic. She is also on your agenda and has had to withdraw today. So without further ado, let's link in our speaker, Ella Karen Blind, please. And Dr. Poole, she's going to join as well. She's graciously agreed to also discuss her work that she's done with Indigenous women and as it relates to her programs and where she works as well. So I invite her to join me on the stage. I don't like to sit up here alone. Thank you. So she will also be participating in this panel. So thank you and enjoy. Do we have Ella Karen Blind on the line on the Zoom?
Yeah,
there she is.
Yeah.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah. Good afternoon. It's 4 p.m. here in Sweden.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Without further ado, the mic is all yours.
Yes, and I have a PowerPoint, so I will talk about Sami culture, and there is someone who will help me with this PowerPoint. Yes, there it is. My name in the Sami language is Mikael Pieraristina Marke Elekaren, and I'm a Sami, elder Sami woman from Samiland in Sweden, and I will just give a quick overview over the Sami people. As we heard earlier, we are one people in 4 countries: Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Russia. And I'm coming from a reindeer herder family. My brother, he's got reindeer, and I also got reindeer myself that my brother is taking care of. And here's a picture of me when I was a small and taking care of the reindeer calves in the corral. Next slide, please. Yes, and we are indigenous people in Scandinavia and in Russia, and I will just give you a short overview how many we are. And you can see this is the map we have over the Sami land, and you can see it's upside down. Is it? We have the north in the red mark you can see here, and we have Sami Parliament in both Finland, Norway, and Sweden, but not in Russia yet. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, this is our land, Sápmi, Sami land, and we live, as I said before, in 4 countries. We were here before the national borders came. Next slide, please. And who are the Sami people? You can point at, yes, there you are. And we don't have any ethnical register in Sweden, not in Norway either. So if you feel that you are a Sami, no one can argue about it and saying you are not. But if you want to vote for the Sami Parliament, you need to be registered to be able to vote for the Sami politicians' parties. Is it? Next slide, please. And we have our annual meeting, and here we can say, I just want to show you the different Sami dresses that we have. And the Sami dresses, it's a way of showing your own culture, where you come from, and you have different Sami dresses depending from which area you are from. And I come from the northern part of Sweden, but my parents and my grandparents, they were forced to move to the southern part of, to the middle part of Sweden, because the Norway closed the border. So we were not able to stay there any longer with the reindeers. So we have to move down south. Next slide. And here's just a map over the Sami villages in Sweden. You have to belong to a Sami village to be able to be a reindeer herder. Next slide. And we also have official symbols. We have a Sami flag, a national anthem, and we have a Sami National Day. And so we celebrated the 6th of February in all the 4 countries in different ways. So we are also invited to celebrate the New Brunswick, Canada. So I can send you a Sami flag if you want. Next slide. And we also have this Sami Parliament. And this Sami Parliament, they have a board, a health board, but they don't have so much money, and they haven't are working with this alcohol and drugs questions. I haven't seen that, so I will return to that. Next slide. Yes, and it's if you're a Sami woman in Sweden and you have any kind of alcohol problem, we don't have anything for the Sami women that you can go to a shelter or somewhere. You have to go to your ordinary doctor. And I would say it's very shameful to be a Sami woman having alcohol addiction problem. You have to solve it yourself, or you have to just hide it, and that's very sad, is it? And as you can see, if you are a Sami woman who have alcohol problems, addiction, you got a very low social status in the Sami community, and it's nothing you talk about in common and openly. It's something that you hide, and there is no preventive actions against alcohol abuse within the Sami women. There's nothing in Norway. You can go to Norway to get help, but that's at the Sanks. But it's a long distance to go, and there is a network of National Sami Health that exist in Sweden. So you can contact them, and they have a written assignment that if you have any problems, you can go to this Sami Health Center in Norway. But it isn't everyone who wants to go there by different reasons. But, next picture. So I think, as I've heard earlier speaker today, I think we have to build a network between our indigenous societies and start to talk about these issues. How can we prevent alcohol abuse? What can we do about it? What can I do about it? And what can you do about it? And how can we prevent it so the young indigenous women don't get alcoholic? What can we do about it? And that's very good in this conference that we raise these questions. And we also need more research about these topics. Next slide, please. And there is a Sami woman, Mrs. Lena Kroik. She took her dissertation to 2021, and she wrote about a question about what the elder people thought about the death issues. But I think it's her method was so interesting, so that's why I want to mention it. She took this group of elderly people, Sami people, and they walked in the nature. They went to 2 different places, and one place they went with a helicopter because it was so far away from the road, and then they walked around this area in the mountains and talked, and they had a talk side by side, did they? And they, as you see in the slide, they made a fireplace and they boiled coffee, and they had this kind of deep talk. And I think that's what indigenous people do. They often make a fire out in the nature and talk. And I think that's a good way of talking, to sit around the fire and look at the fire and talk about this heavy things about alcohol abuse. What can you do? What memories do you have? And so I think that's a method I want to mention, and I want to start this discussion. How is it something we can work with even more? Just this deep talk and this fireplace and this way of talking and walking and doing something at the same time. And that's something Sami women does. They prepare the food, and and they start to talk about deep things. Next slide, please. And this is a picture I chose to symbolize this knowledge. This is old Sami woman. Her name is Elsa Laula, and she's given the knowledge and her wisdom, give it further to this young Sami woman. And this is a poster that's hang outside Umeå University. And the sign up there is Dalve, winter. It symbolizes it's a project that where we show the Sami artists at Umeå University outside the wall. So that's something. How can the elderly women's knowledge be accepted, and how can we pass it to the next generation? Next slide. Yes, and this is my mom. She passed away many years ago, but she's fishing for the household, and she didn't use alcohol. She was not grown up with that. And I want to, she wasn't grown up with that. And it was the colonization in the Samiland and also many other indigenous societies, communities who, when the colonization came, the alcohol also came with the colonization, with those people who colonized the indigenous people. And that's also another thing I want to discuss during this conference. How is the colonization? What role does it have among this in this alcohol abuse discussion? I think I will stop there, and we can have a discussion or a talk about these issues. So I will say Gito. Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps we could move on to our next presenter and discussion, Christine Petawabano. Does she have the mic there? Does she have audio, Christine? Are you able to unmute yourself, Christine?
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. So nice to see you. Perhaps you could move on to do your presentation, and then afterwards we will open up to the group for Q&A and anything Dr. Poole has to add as well, and we could have a group discussion rather than pose them individually.
Okay, what's my time frame? Because I can go from 10 minutes to an hour.
My timekeeper here beside me. So we have until 11:50. Well, 11:50 we'll start the Q&A. So we need to be wrapped up with the presentations by 10 to 12.
Okay.
So maybe you could speak for 20 minutes or so, or half hour, and then Dr. Poole can add hers, and then we can have a group discussion.
All right.
I'll leave that to you, Christine.
Put on my timer. Wajag msa mstin naskamun na bezwi dem dugat na ha. Mstin hab no go singason EU inu skoni. Good morning, everyone. My name is my spirit name is She That Comes with the Morning Light, and my legal name is Christine, and I am EU Inu from the James Bay region of northern Quebec. First of all, I was disappointed that I wasn't able to join you guys there in person, and I just want to thank you too as well for making arrangements for me to present, to still take part in this conference, in this symposium. I'm in Montreal, so I flew here from northern Quebec down to Montreal, and I was supposed to have my connecting flight yesterday evening, but that didn't work out. So, but you know, I'm here, and so I want to start by telling you who I am, and I got involved with the work here that I do through my own personal experience. I've in my education, I went through a different avenue, and with my work too as well. I work in communications, so. But with being an advocate in my community, it's something that I do on a side. So it takes up a lot of my time, and I wouldn't be a successful person today without having the compassion of my people, of what we what we went through, and also to heal myself and to continue being on this path, on this red road. So a bit of history of where I'm from. Like I said, I'm from the James Bay region, northern Quebec, and I am a third generation residential school. the first generation would be my grandparents, who were impacted by residential school, and my parents, who I am grateful that they're still with me. They're the residential school survivors, and then I'm their generation, so the intergenerational that has happened there, and so I can say that, with what the social issues that what we go through today in my community, in my territory, stems from the residential school. And just to give you a kind of, a picture of what residential school is and was. My parents, I'll share the story of my father, and they were in the community of Mistissini, and it was a place of trading. They trade their furs, whatever my grandfather had killed in the winter months, and or fish that they caught. That was the time that they would bring it to the community of Mistissini, and it was a trading post back then. They brought their stuff to trade, to get more supply, so that they can go back up to their hunting territory. And this was the time where the residential schools, the Indian agent came to the communities, and my father was 5 years old at that time, and so he knew nobody else but his family, and also the other Iuds that were in the community coming in to trade too as well. So a big yellow plane was by the water in Mistissini. The Indian agent came to my grandfather and said, "Do you have any children?" So my grandfather says, "Yes, I do have children." So the Indian agent said, "We're going to take them, and they're going to be going to school. You have no choice but to let them go." So my grandfather picked up my dad and put him on his shoulders and said, "You are going to go away, and they're going to teach you. They're going to teach you another language to speak." So my father was 5 years old. He was crying. He didn't want to go. He was playing with his friends. They were playing with little pebbles and throwing them in the water, see who has the most skips. So my father was put on a plane, and there was different schools there that they were taking. Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and Moose Factory, Ontario. So that's where they took my father. 10 months, he didn't see his family. He didn't see his parents, his mom. And he didn't know any other language. He had to learn another language. So 10 months out of the year, so that's where he was. And the same thing for my mom. My mom was a little older. She was 7. My dad was in this residential school until he was in his early teens. And my mom was in the residential school in her later teens. I think she was 17 when she left the residential school. So pretty much they grew up in the residential school. So this was a huge impact on the development of both my parents. And mind you, it wasn't just them, that it was other children from all over. And my parents met when they were in their early 20s, and started having children. So that's where I came. I'm the fourth. I'm the fourth of 9 children, and one has passed on to the spirit world. So with this impact, it created a lot of issues, social issues. That's where family ties were broken. Imagine, like trying to raise a child when you don't know, how do you raise children, and having to deal with the memories of what has happened in our residential schools. I don't think I need to mention those. I think we know what was going on in these residential schools, all the abuse that had happened, and trying to, like they say, erase who we are as people. And but today, I'm here, I'm strong, I'm alive, I'm resilient. I've connected back to what was trying to be destroyed, what was trying to be taken away. I'm here, my people are still here. However, it is a great challenge to overcome the struggles that we have faced and that we are still facing today. But we found the key, I guess, is reconnecting back to our ways, to our culture, to our language. I'm very fluent in my language that is my first language. And I had to familiarize myself with it because I left to go down south to pursue an education. So I left at 14, and but I was connected with my family. However, my language started to change. In my mind, my first language started to become English. But when I moved back to the community and working in communications, and first and foremost, we put our language first, and that's what we do. Our radio, everything there that we do it in our language. So it really strengthened me to reconnect back. And as mentioned before, in my introduction, I just celebrated my 13 years of sobriety, and it was my second time around. And in my early 20s, mid 20s, I was a heavy user with alcohol, and so I grew up, drinking all the time, but I stopped for a while. I stopped for a few years, and but I went back to my old ways, and was drinking constantly for about 3 years. And back in 2008, 2009, so that's when things started changing again, and became sober. And being on the sober path, I said that my sobriety will always be first and foremost in my life. And even before my family, before anything. Because if I don't keep my sobriety first and foremost, I will lose those things again. My job too as well, my home, whatever there that I have, my self-respect, I will start losing them again. And I didn't want to do that. So I said, okay, from now until I pass on to the spirit world, this will be my most important thing. And it has led me on a path of discovery of who I am as an Indigenous person, a woman. And being on the red road, picking up our ceremonies, that I hold very dear to me. And I just finished my Sundance this summer, my 4 years, and it's a very good accomplishment. And the people that I've met, that I've connected with, are from the same path. They've encountered similar challenges in their lives. And just standing with them, it's making us stronger, and more are standing up with us. More and more are returning to this path. The decolonization is where, we need to work on. Sometimes, like today, it's not the Western society, it's not the Westerners that we're going up against now. It's amongst ourselves. It's because we were taught, my parents were taught that being Indigenous is wrong. So they passed that down to us. Ceremonies are bad, ceremonies are evil. That is what my parents were taught. And that is what they wanted to teach me. I grew up in a Baptist home. My parents are Baptist and what they call, born again Christian. So I grew up with that. Sunday school, summer camp, going to Christian camps. That's where I grew up. But there was always this voice within me, my spirit longing for, to embrace and to bring alive of what makes me an Indigenous woman. And later on in life, I returned to that. I went into a sweat lodge and it felt like home. And from there, that's where I find my strength. That is where I find my healing. That is what keeps me grounded. Going to sweats, going to different types of ceremonies, the shake tent ceremony, the tie-ups, celebrating rites of passage. Rites of passage is celebrating who we are as people. Rites of passage starts from the birth of a child, right up until the day that you pass on to the spirit world. There's different teachings, there's different ceremonies, and the more we practice those ceremonies, the more we detach from what was wanted to be taken from us. They wanted us to be Westerners. But the Creator didn't want me to be a Westerner. The Creator wanted me to be a Inusco. That is what we struggle today in our communities, in our families. Just like me, our people are still fighting alcoholism, addictions, different types of addictions, drug addiction, youth protection, having children, having to place children in homes. They have to be taken away from their parents, especially our young families. That's what they go through. And I sit on the Cree Health Board. I'm the community representative for my community, and I'm also the vice chair for the Cree Health Board. And I've been the representative for 6 years. I've been reelected, and I'm grateful for that because I'm an advocate and I speak on behalf of my community and the Cree Nation as the vice chair. I sit with other members. Each community, there's 9 of us. there's 9 Cree communities in the James Bay region. So we have one community representative, and they speak on behalf of their community. So that's where I sit. And now, we're trying to change things, and we want to make this healthcare system ours, adapted to our ways, and incorporating our medicines. We want to give our people the best of both worlds, the Western and also who we are. Bringing in our medicines in there to tell, to make that offer to our people and say, these are the medicines that are available to you. You can take the Western, or you can take the, traditional medicine. It's up to you. That's taking ownership of our healthcare system by making that available for our people, and the youth protection tool as well. Taking children. It's like going back to residential school. Taking the children away from their parents. We're changing that system too as well. We're in the process of it. And we want to make the youth protection adapted to us, how it's best served for our people, for our children, our families. That is what's in process right now. It's kind of like we're fighting with the provincial government on that, but we are fighting it. It's not them that are going to control it. We're going to control it because it's our children, our families. That's the way we want to go about it. And what we encounter, like I said, it's to take ownership, to take what was ours and seeing it, and for our people to see it, and to learn from one another. For many times we're just going around in circles. It's like a vicious circle. And our families, like our people, a lot of our people didn't understand that. Didn't understand that the connection of our past, the traumas that we went through, is related to who we are today, what's happening today. It's so many of them think that it's alcoholism is the root of all evil, a lot of them don't understand that it's a coping mechanism, that there is an underlying issue of why they're abusing the alcohol, why they're abusing the drugs, why they're neglecting their children, their families, the abuse that happens too as well, amongst each other, with our elders too as well. But there are many of us who see it, and there are many of us who are advocates for this. And when I picked up my tools that the Creator has instilled in me when I was born, I used them. I helped my people. And one of the key things that we found is land-based, returning to our culture. A lot of our people, our young people, we take them out on the land, and they say that they don't know how to survive. A lot of them haven't been out on the canoe, the paddling, or the snowshoeing, the hunting there that they did, the rabbit snaring, the killing of big game, or geese, the different migrations. So a lot of them have started learning now. But that's good, it's good that it doesn't matter what age that you go back to. The important thing is that they're willing and that they are learning from it. Back in the year 2000, I took part in the first healing journey, and it was walking 550 kilometers on snowshoes. The plane dropped us off at this old trading post way up north, and we had to walk on snowshoes back to the community, back to my community. We didn't have to have doctors or psychologists there. Our doctors and psychologists, psychiatrists were the trees, were the snow, and the fire. My people that I was walking with, those were my medicines. And that's why it was called the healing journey. I did a lot of reflection and a lot of healing out there. And then this summer was our canoe brigade. We took out some youth, took them out on canoes, and it was a 6 days out on the land, and just helping them, guiding them, supporting them to reconnect. So we are on the right path. This is what we do, and this is my passion where it lies, and this is what I want to teach my people, and this is what the Creator has given me, and this is what I want to give back. That is what I wanted to share. Like I said, I don't have any formal Western education. I learned from my healing, and that is what I continue, and that is what I want to continue doing for my people and for whoever wants to hear my story. I'm very blessed, and I'm very honored to be part of this this seminar. And if you have any questions later on for me, I am more than happy to answer with what I can.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Lisa. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Dr. Poole is going to build onto both of your presentations here, and then we'll open up to questions.
So amazing what both of you have spoken about this morning, and really offers us a lot of wisdom to think about our work in connecting to your work, and building in that idea that you mentioned of two-eyed seeing, of holding the best of Western and the best of Indigenous cultures together, and thinking about where to go from here. I've had the privilege of meeting lots of Sami people at the circumpolar health conferences in the northern parts of our countries, and I've also had the great privilege of walking with an Innu community in Labrador from the Sheshatshiu Nation, around developing their ideas about what it is to prevent fetal alcohol spectrum disorder from a community-led, community-driven, culture-driven approach. So both of the things that both of you said were really touched on the thinking. I just wanted to mention that for me, it really means that those of us who are not Indigenous really take up this work in understanding what it is to do reconciliation in this context. And I just want to use the example of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action number 33, which is, we call upon the federal, provincial, and territorial governments to recognize as a high priority the need to address and prevent fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and to develop, in collaboration with Aboriginal people, FASD preventative programs that can be delivered in a culturally appropriate manner. And it seems to me that this is our work of walking with Indigenous communities, sharing what we know, and supporting this work that has been so eloquently described. In our work on trying to do this, we've walked with the Thunderbird Partnership Foundation, an Indigenous group in Canada, a national Indigenous group in Canada, leading work around Indigenous health and wellness and substance use concerns. And they have really helped us think through things like developing an Indigenous approach to FASD prevention. And I just wanted to say one quick thing about what we've been able to talk about together, because it really draws on what has been presented here and links to the material I talked about earlier. When we came together with Indigenous representatives from organizations and communities to talk together about what it is for us to work on this reconciliation call to action. Here's what the 8 things we felt we needed to do. We needed to center prevention around Indigenous knowledge and wellness. We needed to use, which is the theme of our conference, a social and structural determinants of health approach. We needed to highlight relationships, correcting the breakdown of family and community relations, which has been so well described. We needed to honor that this work needs to be community-based and driven. We need to think about that idea in FAS prevention of the wraparound support and holistic services that we talked about before. And just as well presented, we need to think about a life course approach, not just the moment that you're pregnant, but how, all the seasons of wellness that we can support with positive parenting relationships and other ways. And we need to really think about what does resiliency look like and support women, families, and communities on that. And interestingly enough, and maybe this is partly because I was involved, was that we talked about how we ensure the long-term sustainable funding and research on this, that we don't just provide short-term funding for these approaches, but we recognize the importance of long-term, gender-responsive, and culturally driven budgeting by our healthcare and social care systems. So I just wanted to mention that for me, this is the work that we do in partnership with these wonderful women. So thank you.